meeting of the Coffee County Board of Education. Today is September 9th, 2024. The first thing that we will do is introduce, well, first of all, we'll do a Pledge of Allegiance, and one of our new student ambassadors, Mallory, is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we have the privilege of Teresa McFadden inducting our new school board members. So, Ms. McFadden.
I forgot I had to do this. Step.
Okay, after I say aye, y'all state your name, and when I get to the districts, I'll tell you to state your districts, okay? Y'all ready? I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will perform with fidelity the duties of the office to which I've been elected and which I'm about to assume. I do solemnly swear to support the constitutions of Tennessee and the United States and to faithfully perform the duties of the office of a member of the Board of Education representing the in state your district.
2, 6, and 7.
Education District of Coffee County, Tennessee. Congratulations. I need y'all to sign.
Oh, it's slowly up here. Only 3 of us.
Elected and reelected.
Goodness.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, everyone. We look forward to serving with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to all our new board members and to the one that's coming back again for a second term. So we're looking
Forgot all
forward to
about it.
working with all of you. Okay, so now then, I can call to order the meeting of the Coffee County Board of Education and for September 9th, 2024. And the first thing on the agenda is, did anyone sign up for public comment? Okay. All right, and before we start on our agenda items, I would ask Mr. Cordell if he would lead us in prayer. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for this another beautiful day to enjoy the beauty of your creation. We thank you, Father, for this team, for our schools, our county, our school system, and our children. We pray, Lord, for wisdom and discernment as we make the best decisions to protect them and provide for them. Thank you, Father, for our director, our administration, and our teams, our teachers, all the people in our county that works for the school system. Thank you, Father, for our school board members. I pray, Lord, for wisdom and discernment for them. We pray, Father, that you lead us and direct us in everything that we say or do. And Father, may we be here to honor and glorify you. This we pray in your Son's precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, under the first item number 4, general consent items, has everyone had a chance to look at all those? Are there any of those items that you would like to see pulled out prior to approving them? Okay, there was a couple that I thought maybe we needed to look at again. It's very minor details, but maybe one of them is recruitment of employees, 5.105. I would like to pull that out to become an agenda item, which would be agenda item probably number 9 and under the action items. And then the other one is voluntary pre-K attendance, 6.2011. And that would be item number 10 under action items. No one has anything else that they need to pull out, that you have any questions about?
Yeah, I would like to look at the one, the 6201 CC, August 7th, where it talked about requirements, attendance. It was
Okay, 6.2011.
Yeah, 6.201.
Okay, that would be agenda item number 11. Okay. Okay, all the others are okay with everybody? Okay, do we have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, and second, Mr. Cordell. Okay,
Who made the motion? I think it's Hodge.
Hodge made the motion and Mr. Cordell seconded.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Gilly. We're approving all the items except the ones that were pulled out for later review.
Aye.
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 Aye. Passes 9-0.
There's only
8-0, sorry. We've got one missing. Okay. So the first under our action items is board elections. So I'm opening the floor for a nomination for chairman of the school board for this term.
Ms. Jones, that actually gets turned over to the director to do that part.
Okay, I thought that was my thinking, that would be the first thing that was done tonight.
And that's what I told you when I was up there. Yes, ma'am, you would handle it up to there and then it'd be turned over to me.
Okay,
Okay. All right, and so, process now is that the director is acting chair until a chairman is established, and then the chairman would take over the process from there on. And so as acting chair, then just asking for nominations for board chairman for the 24-25 school year.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Mr. Tom Ballard
Okay.
as chairman.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? All right. Do I have a motion that nominations cease and that this individual be elected by acclamation?
Motion to do it.
Yes, basically, it's a motion that we have to cease nominations first. And so we had nominations, I asked for any further nominations, there weren't any, and so now we have to have a motion to cease nominations.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I second.
All right. Okay, so we've had a motion and a second for nominations to cease. At this time, this will be a vote on the ceasing of the nominations. We'll start with you, Mr. Cordell.
Aye.
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 Okay. Now, and as it said, the nomination cease and the individual is elected by acclamation. And so that's where we are. At this time, I will transfer the duties of the chair to the 24-25 chairman of the Coffee County Board of Education, Mr. Thomas Ballard.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your confidence.
Congratulations, Tom.
We can do it from here. We're not gonna shuffle everybody around.
I don't know, you want some notes right here? So what you would do is right here, I hand that over to you. You're at step 5.
Okay. Okay, at this time, the chair will now accept nominations for board vice chairman for the 2025 school year.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Ms. Frida Jones.
I'll second that.
Go ahead.
Any further nominations? Okay, do we have a motion that nominations cease and that this individual be elected by acclamation? Second?
I second.
Okay. Get that. Okay, and then, so we need to vote on that. So, I guess start with Ms. Lynch.
Aye.
Aye.
Do I vote?
Aye.
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 Aye. So that is 8-0.
Congratulations, Ms. Frida.
All right, so now the big one is committees. I think we just move right into that, and Dr. Lawson and Mr. Shores, you're gonna have to help me with some of these committees, because I don't know how often some of them meet or what they all do, but the first one on here is, and just for the new board members, is we can have up to 4 people on a commit, on most of these committees, I guess not all of them here, but any more would be a quorum, so we can't do that, so that's why you'll see some names on here, but yeah, that right there. There you go. So the first one up is the Anti-Drug Coalition Committee, and right now that's Jennifer Peacock Hodge. Committee Advisor, Tony Gardner. Do you want to stay on that?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
so stay there. Next one up is the Budget Committee, and the Budget Committee has never met since I've been here, but probably needs to. Currently, Robert Gilly, myself, Frida, and Kathy Rose, who's not here, so I'm certainly willing to step off of that and make room for new board members, so we probably have 2 people who might want to be on the Budget Committee.
Also,
Mr. Hansard?
I'll serve, be willing to.
So, and then who else?
Mr. Cordell, Mr.
Mr.
Hanson.
Cordell? Okay, so I'll come off that and we'll replace with Gary Cordell.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to stay on that if I could.
Yes, all right.
And I would too.
All right, so we have Mr. Gilly, Mr. Cordell, Ms. Jones. You want to stay on that?
Yes.
Yes. And Scott Hansard. So, Mr. Hansard. All right, Calendar Committee Board Representative. We've had 2 on there. Mr. Nestor and Mr. Crabtree are no longer here, so do we have anybody who wants to be on the calendar committee? And that is just basically setting the calendar for the school year, right?
Yes, we usually set that 2 years in advance, and so I believe when I started, there was one well, I don't remember, but the number can change, but right now we have 2 members. And yes, we just meet when we set the school calendar for 2 years.
And on the committee, extra committee is actually teachers and employees. The board members are actually just listening in on the committee meeting. So they're not a voting member.
Okay.
Because the board actually votes for the calendar.
So you're basically just monitoring, okay, kind of like the textbook committee, okay.
Any
Input,
Yeah.
input.
Any of
Input,
these
yeah,
things.
but you're not a voting member, okay.
Right. Any of these things where the board member will eventually approve it as a board member, they don't usually vote in committee.
Right, okay. So does anybody want to be on the calendar committee?
I'd like to.
Okay. Ms. Matthews? Anyone else? Anyone else? All right.
I will.
Rita? Okay,
There's been 2, so
sure.
no one else wants that? Okay.
All righty. Capital Projects Committee, currently Mr. Gilly, Ms. Jones, Mr. Cordell, and Kathy Rose is no longer here, so we have at least one opening, and we do have some capital projects, some big ones coming up, and then the smaller ones that there are going on. So I imagine this committee, how often does that committee meet?
This committee usually meets 1 to 2 times a year. And it's mainly discussing the large capital projects.
Okay. So there's at least one opening there for capital projects.
I'd like to do that, Mr.
Okay. Scott, Hansard. I'm assuming Mr. Gilly, Ms. Jones, and Mr. Cordell want to stay on there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Directors Evaluation Committee.
Hold up just a second. Okay, can we give me just a second? What you got?
Okay.
Okay, can we,
All right.
can you repeat those for me?
All right, Directors Evaluation Committee, there is some things there's some unfinished business there. Currently, Ms. Jones and myself are on that. We have at least 2 openings. I can come off there if somebody else wants to be on there, but there,
Mr. Chair, can we go back to the Capital Projects Committee?
sure.
I didn't get them all. I got,
Okay.
Mr. Hansard.
All right, Mr. Hansard, Mr. Cordell, Ms. Jones, and Mr. Gilly. So, all right. Directors Evaluation Committee is working on a couple of things. There's the model contract. We are going to be looking at searching for a new director, and so that committee is working on the contract. It's working on the director's evaluation form and a few other things. So there is some unfinished business there that does need to get done. Ms. Jones, are you still interested in being on that committee?
Yes.
Okay. So I can come off if somebody new wants to get on there. So we have at least 2 openings. So, Mr. Cordell?
I'd like to also.
Mr. Hansard?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Cordell? Anybody else? And I will step off that if somebody else wants to come on, go on, so. All right, I will stay, so Mr. Hansard, Mr. Cordell, Ms. Jones, and myself. Ethics Committee, Mr. Gilly and Mr. Nestor, who's not, is the Ethics Committee, does the chair sit on that, have to sit on that committee, or is that
Not necessarily, no.
not necessarily? Okay, so,
And
and,
it comes up as required by policy 1.106, dealing with certain ethical issues, and luckily, we have not had to convene that committee at all in 5 years.
Okay, so, Mr. Gilly's on there, I assume you want to stay. Anybody else want to be on the Ethics Committee?
I'll do it.
Ms. Hodge, okay. Okay, FRC Advisory Council, Brent Parsley and Kathy Rose, that's wide open, and I have no idea what that is, so.
Well, usually what happens here, FRC is the Family Resource Center. That's Ms. Carrie Davis, who's listed as the committee advisor. Basically, if there are requirements as part of her position to work with the board and that kind of thing, she'll convene that committee to explain what is needed. This is mainly, probably, I gotta say, it's probably mainly at the mercy of the state. If the state requires something that has to be done before it goes to the board, then she will convene that committee, but it's not one that meets regularly.
Okay. So is anyone interested in being on that committee? Okay. Ms. Matthews? Anyone else? Ms. Jones? Okay, so Ms. Matthews and Ms. Jones for that committee. Mental Health Committee, Ms. Hodge is on that committee. You want to stay on there? Okay. So, and I think that's just a one person. Okay. Pre-K Community Advisory Council Representative. Mr. Nestor was on there. Does anybody want to be on that one?
I can take that one.
Oh, okay. Okay, Ms. Hinch. Anyone else want to be on that one? Okay. Policy Committee, Mr. Gilly, Ms. Jones, Mr. Crabtree has come off. I'm on that one. I can step off if somebody else wants to be on there, but that is a committee that meets regularly. We're meeting every other month, or?
It just really depends on the policies and events come.
It comes out about 6 times, yes.
Yeah, so and I know we're kind of behind on policies, but,
I'd like to be on that one.
excuse me?
I'd like to be on
Okay.
that.
Ms. Yeech?
And Mr. Hansard?
No, I'm just saying, Beth,
Oh, okay, so
somebody else could be on
anybody else for the Policy Committee? I can stay on there. Gary, okay. All right.
Stay on, you can.
You know, I'm fine coming off. Mr. Gilly, Ms. Jones, Ms. Yench, and Mr. Cordell for that one. Safety and Security, Ms. Hodge and Mr. Gilly are on that committee.
I want to stay, please.
Okay, does anybody else want to?
Can you please read me back who you said for the policy committee?
Mr. Gilly, Ms. Jones, Ms. Yench, and Mr. Cordell. And Safety Security is Ms. Hodge and Mr. Gilly, who both want to stay on. Does anybody else want to be on that one?
I'd like to do that.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Matthews, Ms. Hodge, and Mr. Gilly are on the safety. Salary Employee Compensation Committee. So we got at least 3 openings. Mr. Cordell's on that one. Do you want to stay on, Mr. Cordell? Okay, so we have 3 openings for the Salary and Employee Compensation Committee, and that's really, you know, can you explain, Dr. Lawson, what?
With this, it just depends upon how many things are changing. Usually that is something that is run past the committee before, and I get input from the committee before it comes before the board. Some of the things we've done in the past have been reworking of pay scales, work calendars, and those kind of things that directly affect compensation. And the amount of meetings depends upon the topics. Years that we've had more pay scales to work on, we've had several, but I think the highest number I've had is 3. The lowest number of any year I've had is 0.
Okay, and I know we did have a couple meetings last year, so besides Mr. Cordell, anybody want to be on that committee?
I'd like to be on that committee.
Okay,
I'll be on that one.
oh, okay. And we got room for one more if somebody else wants to be on there, so. Okay,
Bill.
okay. So we have Mr. Cordell, Mr. Hansard, Ms. Yench, and Ms. Jones. School Health Advisory Council Representative, that is Ms. Hodge, and you want to stay on that? I don't know if anybody else wants to be on that one. Okay. Sick leave bank trustees, so Larry Crabtree has come off. Mr. Cordell, do you want to stay on that committee? Okay. So we have at least one opening for the sick leave bank trustee. Okay, so Mr. Cordell is going to be the only one on there. So Tennessee Legislative Network Representative, I think that's, Mr. Crabtree is gone. That is, you know, you could call up and talk to Rush Bricken and Janice Bowling, I guess, every now and then and find out what's going on. So if anybody, and I think that's, we only have one, right, of that.
Correct.
So that is, yeah, so.
It's just basically whoever wants to serve as the point person for the board in interaction with lawmakers.
Right.
Do that.
We do, okay, all right. Ms. Jones. Textbook Adoption Committee, so we have, all 3 people have come off there, and that's another where the board plays an advisory role, right, and because we're voting on the textbooks, so.
That is correct. Ultimately, the board will approve textbooks as a whole.
Okay, so, but you get input into the textbooks. What textbooks are coming up this year for approval?
Let's see, Dr. Blessing?
It's section D, which is science.
Science this year, okay, so, fun, okay. So, anybody want to be on the Textbook Adoption Committee?
I'll serve on that
Mr.
committee.
Cordell? Anybody else? Going? All right, Mr. Cordell. TSBA Board of Distinction Committee. We have Gary Nestor's come off, and so we have 3 we can have, and then, did you want to stay as an alternate, Ms. High, or did you want to move up?
I'm happy to stay as the alternate unless
Okay.
someone wants to take that too.
Okay,
And because Board of Distinction is a 2-year thing, and the board just received that back in June or July, there would be minimal
Right.
things unless something new came up just to get prepared at the end of this year.
okay. So if somebody wants to step onto that one, there's really minimal. Otherwise, Ms. Jones, Mr. Gilly, and Ms. Hodge as an alternate.
How about you? Since Gary was.
Oh,
on it.
yeah, I can be on that. I'll add myself, yeah. Probably need to be on one of these, huh? TSBA Delegates Committee, so that is at the TSBA convention. So we need 2 plus an alternate.
I'd be glad to do that one.
Mr. Hansard? Okay.
I'll serve also.
You're on there, so you're staying on? We can have another one. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. And does anybody want to be an alternate then? So, it's just Mr. Hansard and Mr. Cordell.
I think we have to have 3.
Gotta have 3? Yeah, I'm not gonna go to, I'm missing the convention this year, so I can't do it, so.
And this will be at the convention.
On Saturday.
So we need one more person.
do it.
Okay,
Who was that? Ms. Baptiste, okay.
now there is one more committee that's not on here that we need to talk about, and that is the Director Search Committee. Dr. Lawson's contract is up next July, so we can form that committee now and start working on that, or we can defer that down the road. So that's, I would think that we probably want to form it now, and so we can have, I think the board chair typically chairs that committee, if I'm right, according to TSBA, so I'd be on that, and then 3 others. So, Ms. Jones?
Mr. Ballard, I will.
Oh, Mr. Hansard?
I'd like to be on that, unless you want to, Mr. Gillum.
What was that, third one?
Go ahead,
Kind of between us.
go ahead.
Can it only be
I'd
3?
like to, but
So,
I
Mr.
still
Gillum.
think that's probably a full board thing, but that's fine if you're gonna do one.
yeah, well, yeah, and mostly it will be, but, so Frida and Scott and Gary,
Can we have 4? You know, there's one on the budget committee.
and then I will be on that, so.
Wouldn't that be everyone, though? Is that a committee thing, or is that a board thing?
Typically, I think it's a search committee, so brings it back to the board, so.
I had no idea how that
But
works.
that's according to TSBA. Maybe Mr. Shores can, do you have any insights into that, or?
Actually, right then, I was trying to figure out who you had put on this committee. So I
Okay.
didn't hear what your question was.
Okay, myself, Ms. Jones, Mr. Hansard, and Mr. Cordell, so,
I think someone, I hadn't,
It was not Mr. Cordell.
no.
It was
Oh,
either
you
Mr.
didn't-
Me
Hinch or
and her
Mr.
was,
Gillum.
she finally, yeah, we spoke up at the same time, but either one, I mean, me or Miss Yanch, either one, but
That's
I'm
fine,
still the.
I'll concede to you.
okay, so, Ms. Yench?
No, Mr. Gilly, I'll concede to him.
Mr. Gilly then.
Do we still have to have, I think that was the last question that was asked, is there has to be a search committee? Or can it
No,
just be the board?
The board can conduct the search any way they wish.
We don't have to have the committee, but I guess we could save that for another day. It'd probably be nice as long as the agenda is.
Yeah, and, I mean, just getting things together, the contract and.
Yeah.
And deciding whether we want to have TSBA involved or something like that too, so. Okay, so Mr. Ballard, Ms. Jones, Mr. Hansard, and Mr. Gilly. And I think that concludes the committees. So, item number 3 on the agenda is the daycare program.
I believe you have to approve, or you have to have a motion.
Do we have
and
to have a motion to approve the committees?
For the committee members the assignments.
Oh, okay, so that wasn't just, okay.
Just a formal approval as, of members as read.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, on the sick leave bank committee, it has to have 2, according to our guidelines, it has to have 2 members of the board,
Which committee?
the sick leave bank.
Oh, okay. So we need one more person. I can do that, yes. If nobody else wants to do it. All right. All right, so we need a motion to approve the special committee assignments. Mr. Cordell?
Second.
Okay, so I think
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing. Who are the second?
Mr.
Ms.
Cordell
Is mine?
and Ms. Hodge. Okay. Mr. Hansard?
Aye.
Oh, did
Aye.
we, I'm sorry.
Oh,
What are we doing here?
Well, did we make a motion to approve the special committee assignments?
I didn't, but I will. I mean,
All right,
I'll make a motion to accept the committee.
all right.
Wait,
Did
whoa,
we-
whoa.
we just
whoa.
did that.
We already have a motion and a
Right.
second,
We just did that.
We already did that.
We need to
but
vote.
we haven't got a
voting.
vote.
Right.
That's what I thought we were doing.
Okay,
I
so
said
I'm
aye.
sorry, there was some confusion down here, so. All right, Mr. Hansard,
Aye.
we're voting.
Yeah, aye.
going this way.
What's that?
Which way are we going?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're going
aye.
this way.
Aye.
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 Aye, so 8-0. Okay, so item number 3 on the agenda is the daycare program. And
Ms. Sizemore will be talking about this particular program at this time.
Mr. Damewood, Mr. Damewood is handing out the PowerPoint, because I was worried that some of you guys may not be able to see them, so we looked at it earlier, so I printed a handout for everybody to have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr.
so
Damewood.
after last month's board meeting, I know there was some questions about the employee child care, so I'm just here today to answer some of those questions for you guys. I'm gonna do a little bit of an overview, and then if you have questions, please feel free to ask them throughout or at the end. So the plan for the leadership, the daycare will be run by an on-site manager. This person will report to myself, the Director of Elementary Education, and then the building principal within the building where it's housed. It will be housed at New Union in room 1, which is one of the old kindergarten classrooms in the older end of the building close to the cafeteria. And the hours and cost was a big question that we got from people in the community. So the hours for the program would be 7 to 4:30, and we base these rates off of comparing to what local daycares are charging and what the other employee child cares in Tullahoma and Putnam County that we went and visited. So it would be $175 a week for not potty trained children and $155 a week if they were potty trained. And then there would be a $50 application fee that would cover upfront supplies and things like that for the classroom. And it would follow the regular school schedule. So when teachers were in the building, they would be open. So it'd follow that same calendar. So things to know. So for this whole process, to be a licensed child care program, we had to follow the rules and regulations, which are in the standards for school administration child care program. So it's the same rules that we use for our VPK classrooms. So that's what I take care of VPK as well. So it's those same rules and regulations that we would have to follow for that. So the child care manager description, which was approved by the board on April the 18th, was developed using those standards. So there's clear language within there that we have to follow for that job description. There's an application through the State Department. I filled one out in May just to get the ball rolling. It was just like a little checkbox that I need to do, but it's on hold right now until we move forward, if we decide to move forward. We had to get the room measured at New Union, so Tracy Davis, who is the Early Learning Quality Support Specialist from the state, she's who I work with for the voluntary pre-K program. She came and measured the room to determine how many students that we could have in that classroom back in May. We had a fire inspection, which is completed in July, and then a health inspection, which was completed in June. And those were all just things that we had to do through the state just to kind of even get information from them about how to move forward. Some questions that I've had from teachers about some things were snack and lunch. So snacks and lunch would have to be provided by the parent. There is the possibility that we could do breakfast and lunch through the school cafeteria for a fee. But that's just something that's just basic information. We would have to decide what that fee would be, and things like that moving forward. And then a curriculum, we use Connect for Learning in our pre-K classrooms, so we would use that as well in the daycare. And with Kaplan also has a toddler curriculum that we would use in our toddler room for 1 and 2-year-olds. So this is the data that we have. If you'll look at this third column, when we sent out the survey back in February, these are the numbers that we got back from teachers, number of children that were interested. So we resent that on August the 22nd, and you can see in that last column the interest that we have now. So to move forward, things that we would need to do, we would need to post and hire the child care manager, and then finalize that state application. We would need to finalize the number of children in each age group to determine how many staff that we need based on the number of children. And we'd have to hire the staff, and they have to complete a list of required trainings through the state before even opening the daycare. And then we would have to start to prepare with an application handbook. We have to purchase the furniture and the materials for the classroom. Questions?
I have a question. Whenever we talked about this at our spring retreat, I was very excited because I thought it would be a huge benefit to teachers, but I was under the impression that the incentive was that it would be a discounted kind of daycare for their children, and yet we've got the cost competing with everything local. So, and they also have to provide their own lunches. Was I wrong on that? I thought it would be sort of a benefit.
That is cheaper than what the average rate is within the county, but the real discount, Dr. Lawson and I had discussed, is that they will not pay during summer break. They will not pay during long holiday breaks, so that's a big discount with the cost, because at a local daycare you have to pay to keep your seat. So whenever my kids went to the Learning Ladder, we had to pay all the way through summer even if they didn't attend. So that's really where the big discount would come. So it's not really a discount in the weekly rate, but in the overall yearly tuition that they would pay for child care.
And could we work it out that their lunch would be included, just to walk to the cafeteria, or are they not allowed to do that?
Well, they would not be able to go into the cafeteria. Tullahoma does offers them to buy lunch, but they do have to pay a fee for the lunch.
Okay.
So, but it's at a much discounted rate than what it is for a student or for a visitor.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have this program in other local schools? Like, is it in Tullahoma? Is it in other counties?
Yes, ma'am. So I think Dr. Lawson got this idea from Tullahoma. I think he was at maybe a superintendent's meeting.
Well, the request was initially made by the Coffee Teacher Advisory Council. It's a group of teachers that I worked with that was created by the MOU from collaborative conferencing. And so they were the ones who had initially requested us to look into this. And so we reached out to 2 programs. We reached out to Tullahoma because they were the closest district with a program. And we also went and visited in Putnam County because they had the longest running program of this type that we had seen. But the original request was from the Coffee Teacher Advisory Council for us to explore it.
But yes, ma'am, Tullahoma has a program that's been, I think that they started right after COVID. So they started the 2021 school year, I believe. That was correct.
With only 10 kids, even at the highest rate, we're looking at about, what, $1,700 that they would be paying. So the teacher, it will be public school employees.
Yes, ma'am. So
right?
Any employees of the school system.
Okay, so we would be paying all of the things that a public school employee. And then when they get to the teaching age, would we be getting a K3 and 4-year-old teacher for them as well?
For the employee child care, it would all just no, there would not be a certified teacher within that 3 and 4-year-old classroom for the daycare. It would just be just typical daycare situation. We do have, pre-K classrooms where if they qualified for pre-K, they could go into our 4-year-old pre-K classroom. Yes, ma'am. But it would just all be, it would all be ran by classified employees, not certified.
How
Do
many
you think?
personnel,
Go ahead.
how many personnel are you anticipating you need to even start, even with 10?
I'll go back to this slide. It kind of depends on the age levels of these. Like we could put 12 to 18 months together. So there are some that may fall into that 18 to 36 months that could go up or down. But in addition to the manager, I mean, I would say you would at least need 3 or part-time employees to cover that with the ratios.
And the goal of it is to kind of support itself with the fees.
That is the goal, yes, sir. Mhm.
And
Kind of
so,
hard with 3 people and 1,400 to 1,600 a month.
and so the board, since there's not been a motion made, you're receiving information from Ms. Sizemore. The board, as you can see, going in when there was anticipation of another school year, the interest was much higher. I believe one of the things Ms. Sizemore heard from teachers she contacted was they already have daycare arranged for this year and they hesitated to make a change. So the board, depending upon who makes a motion, the board could choose to not do a daycare. They could choose to do a daycare, or they could even choose to bring this up and set a date for us to discuss it, to move forward in the next semester and evaluate whether there was greater interest at that point. But that would be kind of where those are 3 possibilities, and obviously a board member can come up with their own motion on that.
If the third item was discussed that he just laid out, obviously, if it's not approved and not pushed forward right now to where you can get the names of who you're gonna submit on the application to the state and all of that good stuff, what is the turnaround time of getting those applications and things back?
Fairly quickly, since I'm working with the lady that I work with for voluntary pre-K, all of that has worked pretty quick, because I can just be in quick contact. But then again, it's the state. So when I initially did this back in May, everything was kind of moving quick, but it was kind of like it was summer. It was kind of the dead period. It wasn't the, middle of a school year. And
So if this was something that was considered this coming spring to get ready for the following school year, you would probably get a lot more interest in it, things of that nature, and we'd have time.
Yes, when I received such low numbers of responses, I reached out to all the people who had completed the form in February, and I just emailed them individually and said, you were interested before, are you interested now? And so a lot of the responses I got back from people were that they already had childcare. They wouldn't want to move their kids, this time of the year. Maybe they'd be interested next year. Some of the people are no longer employed with us that were interested. But I think that the big thing is it's just not maybe a good time for them to do that. Also, we had 7 people who were interested in babies, and we're not wanting to start with 6, with younger than 1, just because of the ratios. You can see we would have to have 1 adult for every 4 of those kids that are under 1. So, yeah.
So a springtime 2025 commitment gives you a lot more room and time frame to move forward and put together to be ready for the start of the 25-26 school year.
Absolutely, and that would not even require a motion. I mean, there could be no motion made and just a board member request that it be brought back up and tell us the month, and that can be done then, and it doesn't even have to be a formal motion in that scenario.
When do you absolutely have to have this approved in order to get everything ready and the interest going throughout the summer so that you can start in the fall?
I don't know, that's hard to say.
Because I would like to make that motion
But
for you.
I would like, if we're going to move forward with it, we would need to know, have a good solid number. Teachers would have to know before the end of the school year that it was a go. And since we've already received the inspections, we would probably have to redo those inspections. But since we already know that the building, the classroom is, has been inspected and is approved for those classrooms, so that's kind of, we've already done those things. We would just probably have to redo them just to get an updated inspection.
Okay.
So I would say if we could at least have this done by March you
Okay.
know, a motion, if that's what you want to do. I think that would give me time to get all of the other things completed. I would
Dr.
say.
Lawson,
One
would
of the
you?
things that I've had some teachers to, and some of the parents, are we set on this location? A lot of the things that I've heard that has been addressed to me is that it could be more centrally located. Are we set on, I
I
mean,
think we are kind of set there just because I feel like it may be the most centrally located elementary school. We had originally talked about doing it at Raider Academy, just because it was right there on the interstate to be easy off and on for people, you know, going to Hillsborough, traveling to North Coffee. But the issue with Raider Academy is they do not have a play area. So that would be an additional cost because we would have to have a fenced-in area for the kids to play to, whereas at the elementary schools, we already have those pre-K playgrounds that are already there and established. So just some, and plus another thing is we need bathrooms in the classroom, and a lot of those at Raider Academy, that isn't, they don't have bathrooms or sinks within the classroom.
Miss Sellers, she had told me that there's 2 rooms down there that they have water at, and it's right there in the front where they can drop them off. And another thing as well is we used to have daycare at the high school. You know, is that not an option too? If we just throw that out, or is it because we used to have daycare at our high school, and that would take some of the cost away.
I don't know, that would be before my,
If we had to build a playground, though, then that's going to give the cost right back to it.
Sasma, what is your recommendation, to wait till next fall to start this? Is that what you think would be best?
based on the numbers that we have right now, of people who would be interested, that would probably be in the best interest of the district. While I think that it's a great benefit for teachers and staff and employees, I just don't think that with the numbers that we have right now that are interested, that it's probably not a wise decision to move forward right now.
And maybe those people that were interested that had the small babies, they'll be older.
Yeah, they'll be
and may
one,
not
yes,
be
ma'am.
eligible by next fall.
Because I had a couple people that reached out that said they're only 9 months old. So yeah, so they would be 1 year old.
I believe
by the
that's
time they-
definitely something that's going to happen. But the numbers, the numbers.
Well, who are they mostly teachers' children, or are they,
Yes, most of the responses that I have received are from teachers. Yes, ma'am.
well, thank you for this. That was very concise and very informative, and I expect nothing less of an elementary supervisor. So you made it really definitive for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your research.
One thing that would help me going forward is a budget.
Yes, ma'am.
If we can get some idea of how many would be interested for next year, what it's going to cost for this director, what it's going to cost for the different employees, it would really help to have some concept of what we're looking at agreeing to for the cost of this.
And I think that we have worked on the manager pay. That was the next item on the agenda if we were to move forward, but we have not. That hasn't been approved or discussed as far.
Not this meeting.
Okay, so you're just taking this on as extra duties. You're not getting a stipend or anything for
No,
taking
ma'am.
this on? Okay.
Dr. Lawson, if you would help me word it, I would like to make the motion to rediscuss this in March.
You can make a motion to postpone,
Okay,
and if you make a motion to postpone until the March meeting,
Okay.
that can come up then. Ms. Sizemore can make it a point to maybe do an interest survey again, just like we did one in February. If we have that data ready at that point, you would postpone until March.
okay, I would like to make a motion to talk about this again at the March meeting and see if there's more interest and if we can get it going for the fall.
I'll second that motion.
Postpone to March? Okay.
Postpone to March.
It is a good idea, and I hope that it works out, and I hope that teachers will take us up on this and get their kids in here.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor and discussion. Or did we do all our discussing already?
I just need to see it come back with a budget before I can decide.
Can you get a
So the
second?
motion is to postpone this until the, consideration of this until the March board meeting. And that has been seconded, so unless there's any discussion, we can start with, Ms. Jones, I think.
Aye.
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 Aye, so that passes 8-0. And the next item is daycare supervisor compensation, but I think we,
That'd be the same motion.
yeah.
Well, part of the problem, there was a motion and a second in the last meeting, and it was postponed, and so the only person who can withdraw the motion is the one who made the motion, and so since that person is no longer on the board, it becomes difficult. So there are two ways that this board can do with this. They can, because the motion and the second have been made, both the person who made the motion and the second are no longer on the board, it can't be withdrawn. You can either take a vote on this as far as setting that compensation at the level of the finance people, or it can be postponed indefinitely, which means it disappears until we need it again. So, but it would require another postponement, but this time, or you could postpone it until, well, you could postpone it until March, you could postpone it but if we want a budget in March, it would need to be postponed until one of the meetings leading up to that. So, we're readdressing it, which satisfies the first postponement. But if we want to discuss this in the February meeting to give Ms. Sizemore an opportunity to build a budget, it could be postponed to the February meeting, to deal with at that point. It just depends upon the will of the board. But we have to address it here in some fashion, even if it's another postponement.
May I ask a question? Sure. Oh, can you explain that again? Why?
Okay. According to Robert's Rules of Order, if you have a motion and a second, then we had a motion to postpone. So we had a formal motion.
We had a motion to postpone this.
We had a motion to postpone the compensation of the person in charge of the after-school program.
To this meeting.
It was postponed
Okay.
specifically
Right.
to this
To
meeting.
this meeting.
So therefore, it has to be picked back up in this meeting.
And either
So,
voted down or not.
and it either has to be voted down or postponed again, or postponed indefinitely. All three of those are options. So if you have discussion, you can vote on the motion that was made, or you can vote to postpone it, and we would pick it back up at whatever time that motion says to pick it back up. And as I said, if we want a budget, if we want to deal with this in March, you would need to define compensation in February to allow that budget to be assembled.
Therefore, Ms.
Awkward to approve the supervisor, or the supervisor before we've approved the program.
Right.
So that's the challenge.
Well, the job description, all that has to happen, the job description has been approved, the compensation has not. So, if all you did was approve the compensation level in February, you're not approving the hiring of the person yet. That would be delayed until there's the approval of the program in March. So we would just need the approval of the compensation before we could build a budget.
Or we could just do away with it until a later time.
You could postpone it indefinitely and it just
Yeah.
disappears until we need it.
I don't see anything relating to compensation anyway.
Well,
All this
we-
is
in-
the
in
job
documents-
description.
In the documents we had back in, we talked about it. It was to be, the compensation was to be set equivalent to the finance pay line of the classified pay scale. And that's what the motion was for in the last month.
So we should have had that for new board members to see today in order to, if we were gonna vote on it. I mean, you have to see what you're voting on, the compensation, and it's not in here.
Yeah, that's the reason I said I was gonna make a motion just to disregard it until we can all get on the same
If
page.
you want a motion until postpone indefinitely, that would take care of it.
I make a motion to postpone it indefinitely till we can come up with something so that all of us that are new can come up with some type of idea of what we're actually doing.
There's a motion to postpone indefinitely. Is there a second? Okay. So Mr. Hansard and Mr. Cordell. Any further discussion? There is a motion on the floor.
Just thinking that's something that we could talk about at the March meeting.
Okay. We then we're voting on a motion to postpone the daycare supervisor compensation indefinitely. Ms. Hodge?
Aye. Aye.
Ms. Matthews?
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Scully?
Aye.
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 Aye. So that's 8-0. Okay, surplus. Mr. Shores.
Yes, we have a refrigerator that is at East Coffee that they have actually been using for storage. It's not been plugged in, it's not working. It's not feasible to actually repair this refrigerator. So it needs to be surplus so that we can remove the refrigerator from the building and dispose of it.
And for the new board members, I'll explain. Anytime we have an item that the school district has spent a significant amount of money on, and a refrigerator would fit that, in order to dispose of it, it requires board approval. And so, basically, as you heard Mr. Shores say, this is not working, it cannot be fixed, and so, but we still have to have approval of the board in order to get rid of it, and that's what a surplus is.
And it is a commercial refrigerator, so it is a very significant amount of money.
Do they need it for storage?
Do what?
Do they need it for storage?
They do not need it for
They want
storage
it gone?
anymore. They asked us to get rid of it.
All right.
Kind of like those tires a while back.
Mr. Chair, I move to surplus these items.
I second.
Okay, Mr. Gilly and Mr. Cordell. Any discussion? All right. Take a vote on surplusing. Ms. Matthews?
Aye.
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 Aye, 8-0. Okay. Budget Amendment 141-2025-1. Dr. Lawson?
Yes, this, and I will call your attention to the two different versions of this that came out. So the first one that was in the supporting materials, now this is the budget amendment that would create the funding for the after-school program that was approved by the board at the previous meeting. But now we have to take action in order to pay for that particular program. And so each of you should have received a budget in the amount of about $400,000 and some odd $1,000, and so, or right around 400,000, give or take. And so that is, we need to fund that program as approved by the board at the August meeting. And so what we had was, we first had an amendment that brought it all out of unassigned fund balance. I did not notice that it was all from there, and so there was a revised version of it that would utilize the restricted money. There was $65,082.28 from a restricted account, and then the remainder would come from unassigned fund balance. So technically either one of those, but it's but it is one thing that we did talk about. It was an oversight, and so but what the board directive, if I remember right at the last meeting, was to utilize the money for the after-school program and then fund it from fund balance, and that's what we did with that one. And so if you're confused for a moment, give us a moment to step up there, and we can pull up the correct budget amendment for you on your screen. But if you're not seeing what I'm talking about.
I see the 405-948-84. That's the one we're supposed to consider, correct?
Yes, as long as the one Both of the copies have that, but the one that we would look at first is the one that says it has two components that add up to that. On the top, the first number is 340,866.56. The second number is 65,082.28. And so that would be the one. Now, if the board wants to take it all from unassigned fund balance, that one is ready to go as well. So actually, either one of those can be approved by the board. And so that, it would just need to be defined as far as which one of those versions. And again, the only difference is, in both cases, the expenditures are the same, but in one, all the money comes from unassigned fund balance, and the other, it comes from a mixture of unassigned and restricted funds. So if a board member makes that motion and they say, we want to approve the amendment that has the combined funds, we would use that one.
So the 394,765, we're not going by that one?
394.60.
That's the one that Melissa sent out.
Okay, as far as that budget, that was the preliminary budget. Now, please understand, anytime, you're gonna see this in the spring in our overall budget. Anytime that we have estimated costs, we will round up on those costs just a little bit. And so we think that it's going, according to the budget, we believe it's gonna be 394. But we don't wanna have to come back in May or April and try to do each little line. So some of those lines have been increased a little bit. That's not teachers, not supervisors or directors, but some of those numbers that are a little higher on the budget amendment include things like state retirement, Social Security, Medicare, things where rates can change and be increased, and we want to be able to cover those increases. So the budgeted amount has to be slightly above the amendment amount has to be slightly above the proposed budget in order to make sure we cover the cost. Ms. Melson, is there anything else?
There was just a piece that was left off I guess what you received from Ms. Westmoreland. We have to pay another part of retirement on our newer employees, and it's called retirement hybrid stabilization, and that was not included on your estimate that you received from Ms. Westmoreland. So that's probably the main difference, but everything else Dr. Lawson is saying is correct.
Okay, that's right. I did forget. If you look at the budget amendment, you will see the part that says retirement hybrid stabilization, and since that's a relatively new thing, it was not included on the original budget estimate.
I think what is confusing is that the one budget, we took it, like you said, we took it all out of fund balance. Is that correct? The other one is using approximately 65,000 that was from the old ESP program.
ESP. So the board can choose to do either one of those options.
And I have some questions about some of the line items, but I guess we can't do that until we have a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion.
And so it would just, yes, if you wanted to have a motion to approve all of it from unassigned fund balance, or it being, the money being taken from both unassigned and restricted accounts, either one of those, and once that's established, we would be able to answer questions, yes.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the revised that uses money from unassigned fund balance and restricted for education ESP money, the balance, because that's the way the motion read at the last meeting,
Yes,
was
sir.
to utilize those two. And then get it into discussion, please.
Second that.
Billy made the motion, Ms. Oz seconded. Okay, discussion then.
Looking at this, of course, the reason I picked that was that aligned with what the motion at the last meeting to do this was to use those funding from those two areas. But the supervisor director, 99,000 in the line item of appropriations.
As far as you're talking about within the
Yeah,
the
how you're
amendment.
getting to the 405, 948.84.
Okay. Yes, that counts both, that is a combination of the site directors at each school plus the district director Ms. Garner here at the central office. That is the two numbers in the proposed budget you saw. There was 84,000 for all the site directors and 15,000 for Ms. Garner as district director, and that's where that number 99,000 comes from.
Okay. How
Came up
many
with the
sites?
15,000.
I'm sorry?
How did we come up with the 15,000?
As I tried to explain in the email that I sent last week, that was a result of discussions that I had, and this is a proposal, and as I said in the email I sent last week, the board can change any of these before approval. But prior to this, Ms. Garner had been receiving 25,000, which had been board approved for dealing with the 21st Century Grant. She had three main parts of her job. One was dealing with all the requirements of the 21st Century Grant, which were quite extensive. Two was managing personnel and hiring and getting all the programs set up at each site and making sure that everything was running smoothly with personnel. And three was ensuring the programming was provided at each location and bringing some consistency across that. Now, when we change that over from 21st Century to school district funded, one of those three major components of her job was reduced. She no longer has to deal with some of the federal reporting requirements and that kind of thing. Now the board has asked for an update in December and that kind of thing, and Ms. Garner will continue to get that data and monitor the program and that kind of thing in order to be available for that. But she still has full responsibility for all the hiring of personnel and that kind of thing at each site. And she, working with the site directors for that hire, but also she is responsible for programming and working with site directors to make sure those programs are implemented. So I tried to find some place that reduced her initial pay of 25,000 for doing the job, and I talked it over with her supervisor and with some others, and we set it at 15,000. But the board can elect to put anything in there that they wish. The board, there were several board members that seemed adamant at the last meeting that she be compensated, and so that's why we built that in there, and I made the best guess that I could.
I remember the last meeting, and she was willing to do it for nothing, but I don't think nobody expected. I wouldn't recommend that. How many sites are we planning on?
6.
6? Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
7.
Yeah, we have 6 elementary schools and a middle school.
I have a question. Have we ever paid a supplement for ESP in the past? I know whenever, supervisors get additional duties, they normally don't get, and I'm not saying not to give you an additional stipend.
That
what I'm
question
saying
came up at
is,
the last meeting, and
can you
understand-
tell me any supervisor that's getting an additional stipend other than their salary?
Okay, well, as that came up in the last meeting, as I said, ESP predated me, so I wasn't sure. I did talk to Ms. Brown, and Ms. Brown was over ESP, and she did not receive a stipend for work. She did have an hourly employee that worked here at the central office who put in the extra time and that kind of thing, and that individual was paid for her time. But as far as Ms. Brown's duty, now again, ESP does not have the same level of programming that what the board asked for at the last meeting. ESP was projected as one of the options. We talked about a potential ESP type program that would not have nearly the substance that this will, but the board elected to go this direction. And so with all the extra duties and that kind of thing, that's where we came up with
Do we have the program description of what's going to be expected, and so it can be evaluated? Because this is local money, $405,000.
Best I remember, when the motion was made, it was the same requirements, same standards, same everything. The money was just coming from us instead of the federal government.
I agree with Ms. Jones. I mean, this is not a grant anymore. This is coming out of our pockets. This is coming out of our taxpayers' dollars. We've got 2 directors. We've got all 8 directors here. We've got a district director, and then we've got 7 site directors at $84,000. I think we're directed out. You know, I think there's $84,000 there that I think that she needs to be paid as a district director. I understand that, but going back and down to each one of these schools and looking at an itemized at each one of these schools, each one of these are getting $12,000 for each school, which equals out to be $84,000. That's, you know, a quarter or, you know, a third of what the whole
Now,
program is paid, you know, what we're paying for it.
understand? Now, please understand, the site directors include a mix of some salaried people, but I think the majority of them are hourly people. Is that correct? 2 hourly. Okay, so it's a majority salaried with 2 hourly that took those jobs. Please understand, when you're talking about the sheer amount of time, in the past, we could just call that a salary, and since it was funded from the federal government, a different pot of money, we did not have to worry about time. However, this is no longer a federal program, this is a district program. And what that means is that our hourly employees who serve as site directors, they are doing so and they're receiving extra hours from the district. And so now we are bound by Department of Labor laws that cause us to have to pay them if they work beyond 40 hours a week. And so by setting it at 12,000, they were paid the same as they were last year, and we were told in the last meeting, structure it as it had been before. So we set the site director the same as it was the last year, and mathematically it also satisfies the Department of Labor requirements for the number of extra hours those individuals are working. And so if we change, now again, the district director, the board can decide what they want to do. I'm telling you, with the site director, Ms. Melson, Ms. Garner, and I sat down one day and we worked the math out on it, on the number of hours, and the number needs to be set at 12,000 in order to make sure we don't have problems with the Department of Labor. But that's where we came up with that number. Ms. Garner?
Well, and if you just look at the hours alone, I mean, you're right there at 12,000 for your site directors.
So the site director's not a teacher. They actually, we've got a director at each school. We got a director up here, and then you're under a director. Is that correct? You're under someone else.
Wait, yeah, I have Carlin Cotton as my supervisor here at the central office.
So we got 6 directors, 7, 8.
From this, there would be 7 site directors and 1 district director under this proposed plan. But we will.
So the site director's not a teacher that's actually doing.
It might be.
She's just over the teachers that's there.
So 5 of my site directors are actual teachers in the district, but during that time
they're not teaching. They're just.
No, there has to be someone at the, like, checking in and checking out, and someone to be over discipline, someone to, you know, do all that. So that's what their main job is this year. Last year, we actually had clerical people who could do the front door. And this is how the grant was written back 5 years ago, that we'd have a clerical person that's doing the front door, and then the site directors were going around making sure everything was running smoothly, making sure staffing was done, making sure the snacks were provided, and all of that stuff. But we don't have the clerical, so this year they are there at the front door.
So we've got 7 people there for 2 hours, and we still don't have enough people?
No, I feel like we're staffed correctly right now.
But that's not even counting the site director. You've got 7 people and a site director. So that's 8 people.
Well, if you're at North Coffee and you've got 92 kids, and we are doing tutoring, we're doing homework help, we're doing snacks, we're running the program, then no, I mean, sometimes 7 people and a site director is not enough. We could use more staff.
And the site director stays there the whole 2.5 hours?
Yes, plus some.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes we have kids that are picked up late, and then they have other reporting requirements that they can't do when they're sitting there opening the door. They have to get up, manually open the door, check IDs, and check kids in and out. I mean, sometimes they're not gonna be able to get all their reporting and their data in during that 2.5 hours.
So we've got 4 teachers that's making $30 an hour, 3 assistant teachers that's making $20 an hour, and a site director that's making right at 40. Is that correct?
That sounds about right.
Pretty good money.
Yes, sir. In Rutherford County, they get paid $50 an hour.
For what they do at Excellence, I really believe they deserve every dollar because it's a wonderful program and those kids there are benefiting so much from it and they love it. I would not want to cut the pay and get people that were less worthy of the pay being the people teaching the Excellence.
Ms. Garner simply tried to follow the directives of the board at the last meeting. And so if there are changes, obviously before we get further into this, then we need to, we're gonna have to rework, we would have to rework this completely if the board does not want it run. We were told, run it the same way as it had been done. If this new board wants to run it differently, we need that directive so that we can get that switched over as quickly as possible.
And I'll be the one to speak up that I'm the one that brought that up and I'm the one that recommended that because at that time the pressure was on us because the program had dropped last minute. A lot of people was going to be affected with how do we deal with this? It was dropped at the last minute. Now, I will say I was expecting closer to where we discussed at the last meeting, was hoping around that $325,000, so to be $80,000 high.
Well,
I see some of the pressure and concern, but we did add 30 minutes.
The 30 minutes was added, and Dr. Nestor did say that's going to put it up near close to 400,000, and he was right.
Well, and I think that I'd put it in an email that one of my duties will be to watch attendance, and if there's any time that we've got, fewer students, then we're gonna lessen staff. That's one thing that, I even did with the 21st century. We're not here just to spend a lot of money to spend it. I think that I'm a good steward of the federal funds that we were given, and probably even more so with our tax dollars.
That was all discussed at the last meeting, including the fact that, people need to understand in the public, and I think we made it very voiceful that this might not be something that could be sustained. This might be the last year, last opportunity to be prepared for that. And then I think a lot of it hinged on the December, around December when you was
it was requested that we do a mid-year update of some sort.
Evaluation if we proceed further or what we do.
Right.
A lot of parents depend on this, and they, I've had good feedback from parents that were doing this. How many students are involved in the whole program?
So right now, I would say we probably have close to 500 that's registered. We've had about 314 that stayed, not today because I hadn't got those numbers, but the last day. And last week was it's always our least attended because it's the first week and we had fair going on. So this week, last year I think we had over 600 attendees.
Daily?
Daily, for each school, what I did is a daily average. For like North Coffee last year, I had a daily average of 87. Hillsboro, I have a daily average for everybody that I'd shared with you all. I don't know at the top of my head, but I would say we have high attendance.
More questions? There's a motion on the floor.
Do you think 15,000 is what you require to run this program?
I'm not going to say I require that. No, I'm not going to say that. Do I think that my time is worth that? Yeah, I consider what my time is worth taken away from my family,
Are you
my
here the
kids-
entire time?
I'm here the entire time. Yes,
Here
unless I'm out
at
sick.
the office, at the central office?
Probably 1 to 2 days I'll be here at the office. The rest of the time I'm out at sites. This year, especially because I will, if I have a site director out, it'll be me having to go and man that front door because we don't have extra money to pay someone else to do it. So I will be in the front of the schools more. And my plan was this year I'll go run the front desk for them so they can go be monitoring whenever the teaching and the academics and the
So
extracurricular.
you can't do any of this during the regular day? It's always, you have to do it after?
And I believe I shared my job duties for my regular job with you all. I don't have much available time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, some people may work quicker than I do, but I have lots of duties for Director of Coordinated School Health, 504 and homeless. So yeah, I mean, this is a lot of extra work. Yeah.
Well, I think that, Ms. Garner, you've done exactly, I was sitting in the meeting last time, and I think you've done exactly what you were asked to do. I think, yes, it's a little shocking that it was a bit more, but we did say to add another half hour. So I think it just comes down to, do we believe in the program enough to go ahead and pay the price? I know there's a lot of teachers, a lot of people who do believe in the program, and that it's been an excellent program. So I think we just need to, how does that old expression go? Cut bait or fish? You know, it's kind of what it's down to.
Well, and I'm going to do a fantastic job whether you give me 15,000, 25,000, or 10,000. You're going to get 25,000 out of me. I mean, that's just how I am and who I am. So that's up to you all.
You know, Ms. Garner, I mean, I appreciate what you've done. That's not any discrepancy at all. I appreciate, and we need this program. I've just had several teachers that, you know, the site director is making $12,000, and I've got to bring this up because they've asked me. And you've got 4 teachers that's making $15,120, and you've got 1 director that's making $12,000. That's a third, you know, a fourth of what each school. I'm just using East Coffee here. East Coffee's making. We're going to pay $54,754. That's what the budget is for East Coffee. Okay, and the site director is going to make $12,000, and the 4 teachers are going to make $15,120.
And they're working 1 hour a day.
Okay. And the site director is going to be there for 2.5?
At least 2.5 hours a day.
Okay. See, that's not on here. It just says salary.
Yes. They stay there the whole time plus some. And before the program starts, these people aren't just hired. We don't know who's going to be working the program we're going to be. I mean, we've already put in a month's work before the program even starts. Mm-hmm. So you have to consider that as well.
Ms. Garner, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
When I saw the job descriptions, I thought, wow, how does she do all? How does a human do all this? But thank you for your service.
You must really believe in the program to be willing to put in what you're putting into it.
Well, I do, and we have wonderful site directors, and I mean, I'll take nothing as long as they get paid because they deserve every penny of it. And our teachers, they stay extra. You know, at the end of the day, they are ready to go home, but they stay extra because they believe in this program and they believe in themselves, and they're moving these kids, so it's definitely worth it.
It's more than just after school care program. I mean, there's a lot of tutoring, there's a lot of stuff that really help our students, and you know, I've voiced that. I think I voiced it in the last meeting. You know, we need all the help we can get right now to work on our proficiency levels.
Yes, we do.
And you can never do enough. So.
And we said we were going to do
Nothing's
this.
free in this world.
We said we would do this for this year, and we need to see that through and reassess next year.
I'm with Mr. Gilly though on the $7,500 supplement instead of 15,000. I think that's a little exorbitant for other
Okay.
directors,
And
other
understand,
supervisors that do
Miss-
not get that.
Miss Garner didn't set the compensation.
I know she didn't.
I explained the process I went through to set that. And I also said in both email and a moment ago, the board has the authority to change any of these numbers, but I don't recall Mr. Gilly saying anything about 7,500.
I don't
Okay,
either.
well, I guess I'm thinking that in my
Okay.
mind.
But the
you
board,
do, I'm sure you do a great job because the kids are really benefiting from it. I just don't want us getting into the trend of adding 15,000 to a direct, to a supervisor's salary, because I've never seen that done before when there's a,
it has been done for the last 5 years through the
been
course of the
25.
grant, and it
well,
was
yeah,
25.
and
for
we
the
didn't
last 5
realize
years.
that it was that much.
Well, no, ma'am, it was approved. You
I know it
voted.
was approved.
It was
We
approved by
approve
the
a lot of
board.
things that we don't realize.
We're
what
not
we're
gonna let
doing.
that happen anymore. That's what we're doing right here, is we're trying not to let that happen anymore.
Now, I will say this, if you want to reduce Ms. Garner's compensation, basically, it'd be a situation where it would be unusual to reduce it below people that report to her. And right now, site supervisors report to her, and they are paid 12, and I've explained how that was set. So I would recommend that you not drop it below that if that's the direction the board wants to go. But again, the board can choose anything they want to choose as long as 5 people say that's what they want.
I have
All
one question.
responsibilities, I suggest we stay with the 15.
Okay, I have one question though. These site directors that are getting $12,000, how many teachers are they supervising?
Well, so at each school, they're different. If you'll go to their individual schools, like East Coffee, I think they have 3 teachers. North Coffee has 6 teachers, I believe. So it's
So they're all getting paid the same stipend,
right.
even though it's a bigger.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's kind of a discrepancy because it would
Yeah,
be.
that, like I said, not to interrupt Ms. Jones, but there's teachers, Ms. Garner, that have come to me, and that's a big discrepancy. And that's the reason I'm bringing this up, and I think other people on the board have had stuff said to them as well. And we want to keep it. You need to make as much as you can, and nobody's saying that you're not worth that. But even down to the assistant teachers and the other teachers, they're worth it too.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, and that's
Are
the.
these teachers wanting to work more because we're
No,
paying
they're
for
making
them?
this. They're making so much less than the director, and they're working the same hours.
They're not working the same hours.
Okay.
They're working 1 hour a day,
And the assistants are working 2.5.
and some assistants work 2.5. And though you might find some discrepancy if one of the assistants or 2 of the assistants, if they work regular school days, then whenever we start paying them for the after-school program, for the first 5 hours, we pay them $20 an hour. If they work anything over 5 hours, we have to pay them time and a half. So you'll see sometimes it says so many hours at $20, and then it'll say so many hours at $30. That's because they've went over their 40 hours a week.
See, I see at North Coffee, the teachers out there, they work 2 hours. Where at East Coffee, they just work 1 hour.
Well, that may be a discrepancy on me, but they work 1 hour a day. 'Cause
Okay.
that's what
I mean, this
told
is
them
all I
they
have to
could-
go by, so
they
I mean,
could-
yeah.
They can't work longer than 1 hour a day. We used to, the first 2 years of the 21st Century Grant, they let them pay teachers for 15 minutes of planning time, but after the second year of that, they said we can no longer do that. So teachers for the last couple years have only been getting to work 1 hour a day.
Okay. Thank you.
And we have further issues. It's not just taking care of a director or trying to keep a program going and maintain a program. I mean, I've been sitting here for 4 years, and for every single year, we have approved unanimously as a board Miss Garner was getting $25,000. She came in here all summer long trying to salvage this program for the parents and the citizens for nothing. And I take responsibility that initially, until this budget update right here, she was getting another $25,000 like she has every single year. So going down to $15,000 is a lot more economical, but we also have other issues that we need to consider, including Miss Sizemore and everything she has done working on this daycare program. And it was mentioned a while ago about doing it for nothing. Well, there's only so many times you're gonna be able to solicit someone to do something for nothing before we got nobody that tries to help and push and strive. And once again, I'm gonna fall back to my comments. We need every ounce of help we can possibly
Oh, absolutely,
get
absolutely.
on our proficiency.
I think in the last 5 years, though, Mr. Gillies, what we're talking about is we had a grant that was paying for this. We don't have a grant anymore. This is coming out of our pockets now.
And we either had a choice to drop it immediately and leave a lot of children and a lot of parents and a lot of steps forward in proficiency and just drop it, or we had to make a choice to try to pick up the pieces and run as long as we could until we could hopefully either get the grant back or come up with another way to fund it. And that's why even in the original motion, it was planned for a pretty much a in-depth overhaul and check to see exactly what it's going to cost, how it's costing us, and if we wanted to pursue it come December. And made sure that we let the public know this may not last. You know, I don't know. I guess at this point, the way I'm understanding it, unless somebody calls question, if we're wanting to cut this down and cut this budget, and it's all about Miss Garner's, what she's going to work for, or she's going to head this up for, I guess. Do you have any input in that? or does somebody have a number that somebody have a number they're wanting to throw at her? Or?
When can we apply for the grant again?
In
Refresh me.
2026.
So that's another, yeah.
Motion is to approve the revised budget amendment 141-2025-1 that includes the restricted funds plus the take from the unassigned fund balance. Any further discussion? All right, take it to vote. Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
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 No.
Okay, I'll vote aye. So that's 7-1. All right. Budget update 2023-2024. I believe that's Ms. Melson. And I need to step out for a minute.
Okay.
Talk a lot.
This is the budget update for the 23-24 school year. I presented a different version in the last meeting, but this is the final version that will be audited by the auditor sometime in October. Revenues finished at 99.1%. Expenditures finished at 85.26%. So you can see that final revenue was at $52,765,237, and then the final expenditures were $220,257. I will take any questions. The only thing that updated from this report from last month is the revenues increased a little bit. So I will take any questions you have over this budget update if you have them.
I have a suggestion. Could you explain that a little better for the new board members, like the percent received in year-to-date? Because that's very confusing for someone that's just looked at this for the first time.
The received percentage year-to-date?
No, just the entire thing, really.
You want to go through each line?
Yes.
Okay.
I think she might be, are you talking about each column, like explain what percent received means and year-to-date means?
I think it'd be good if you went through each column.
Okay, column
mean, I was talking about what percent received in year-to-date, what we've spent.
Okay, so,
But-
I'm just confused on whether you want each line or each column. The columns are the vertical part, the lines are each horizontal part. As you can see, the number of horizontal lines could take a while, but if that's what the board wishes, that's fine. Which one would you like?
Well, I mean, I'm not new to the board, but, just looking at this, you know, if I never really actually seen this very often, it's very confusing. And, you might want to explain at least the last two columns. Percent.
Okay,
And
I'll
that
just go
kinda
through.
gives us an indication of the budget, of what's been spent year-to-date as compared to last year.
I'll just give a brief description of each section,
Okay.
and then I can tell what the last two columns
That'd be
mean.
good.
Okay, so the first section is all our revenues, and they're summarized. So within each revenue, you may have 3 or 4 different types of revenue. Within this category, you have your first quarter, your second quarter, your third quarter, and then each of the last 3 months of the year. So when I present the July budget, you'll see just July on here. But as we summarize those 3 months in the first quarter, you'll see a first quarter total as we get through those few months. The balance to date column is year to date. So you're always going to see the year to date column, and it's always going to be a cumulative total for whatever month or period we're in, a year to date total. The next column is your original budget. That would be the budget that was passed, that gets passed in the spring retreat. The next column is any amendments that were made to the budget, and then those 2 columns combined equal the amended budget. The percent received is the amount of revenue that we've received year to date. So this amount changes each time I present the budget update. It tells you where we're at for this major category. And then the year to date 22-23 column is where we were at last year for each particular category at this point. So in the July report, you'll see where we were at with July. In July and August report, you'll see the cumulative for July and August. So that year-to-date column updates as we add a month to each category within the revenues budget. The expenditure section is broken out by kind of their main sections. So I'll give one example. So like in the very first section, 71100, regular instruction, this is anything like your regular instruction teachers. And then going down, you will have different categories of special ed, attendance, fiscal, technology. So each one of those, within those categories, you have a sum of different 20 to 40 accounts that roll up into these categories. The columns follow the same guidelines. So they're summed by first quarter, by second quarter, by third quarter, and then by month, if we're in a specific month. The only really difference in the received versus used is that's instead of received, that's how much we've used of the budget. And then the year-to-date column does exactly the same thing. In this category, it compares where we were at last year at this point, year-to-date. Is that what you wanted?
That's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, April. All right, Ms. Nelson, sorry.
My apologies. I'm used to having
It's
board
all right.
members have seen this report before, so.
We haven't.
Ms. Nelson, now there's other budgets too that we have. We see the 141 budget, which is this one, but we have, can you explain those real quick for?
So yes, we also have a federal budget. So with each grant we have a budget. So for an example, like Title I has its own budget. All the ESSER budgets have their own budget, so they're separate funds. So that is not included in this report. All the board's responsibility to approve is the general fund. And then also we have the food budget, which you guys normally approve during the spring retreat as well. But all that's only required for you guys to approve that budget, and then any kind of budget amendments that are for that budget. So we have 3 funds. This is your 141 fund. This is your general school. So this is the majority of your money. 142 has several different sub-funds, and then you have your 143, which is your food. And so you can see what fund this is at the very top of this report. It says, but a Board of Education Fund 141. And so you can see what you're approving right here.
Committee. Do we have a motion to approve the budget?
So move.
I'll second it.
Go ahead, Freya.
Mr. Gilly and Ms. Jones. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Cordell?
Aye.
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 Aye. So 8-0.
We're gonna have to move you to the middle. That is messing with me.
All right, the
Take my face.
July budget update, I guess.
Okay, so this is the budget update for July of this school year. So I will mention that we always close a month behind. So even though it's September, we've just closed July. So in September, we'll be closing August, and so you'll get the August board report in the October meetings. That kind of makes sense. So just so you guys know that I'm not closing. It takes us a month to close because we're a month behind for payroll. So this is your July report. The revenues maybe look funny to you because they're in the negative. This is true every school year in July. The negative revenues are any revenues that were due to us in the prior school year. So I have to book a journal entry to accrue those revenues, and then I have to reverse them in the next school year because we don't want to count that last school year's revenues into this school year. So at the end of June, we had $25,000 in property taxes, or maybe more than that. We may have received some of those in July, but as of July, we have still $25,000 to collect from property taxes. So that's why your revenues are in the negative. So as of right now, we're at negative 0.5% revenue compared to last year, we were at 0.8%. Going down to the expenditure column, not a whole lot happening in July. We have no payroll in July. We don't run our first payroll until August, so you won't see a whole lot of expenditures usually in the July month. We do have a few areas where we do see expenditures. So we pay all of our insurance and liability and work comp insurance. So that's your major thing for July. You can see that, and it's in your 72310 column or row. And then we have, last year we had a grant. It's still a grant this year. It's called the ISM grant. This is the second year of the grant. So we had some purchase orders that we could not carry over. So with grants, if it rolls over into multiple years, we have to liquidate those purchase orders and reopen those purchase orders in the next year. So if you look at your June report, in your capital outlay section, it shows a negative $600 and some odd thousand. Well, we had to reopen those purchase orders down in your capital outlay. So it looks like we've overspent of 105%, but we actually have not, because also you will see a budget amendment come in the next few months for that ISM grant. So we have not brought those funds into the budget yet, but that grant has been approved by the state. Actually not approved by the state yet. It's been approved by the state last year, so the rollover funds will have to be approved again. So that's in the current process. So once that gets approved, we will bring those budget amendments before you, and this won't look like we're at 105% of capital already in July. So percent used for expenditures, we're at 3.43% compared to last year of 3.29%. I will take other additional questions if you have them.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve the July budget?
I so move.
Second.
Cordell and Mr. Gilly. Any discussion? Okay, where did we leave off last time? Ms. Yench?
Aye.
I have a question, one question.
Oh, okay.
On this 71300 line total vocational program, what is the difference in 1.75% used? And last year we'd already used 25%.
So last year for the, are you talking about 71300?
Yes, ma'am.
So for last year, we had a purchase order that we had written for 2 ISM CTE vehicles, and that purchase order was written in July. July. So we had already written some ISM purchase orders early in July for the ISM grant. So that grant no longer affects that line because we've moved those rollover funds into a different line. Does that make sense?
No.
I think, Ms. Melson, correct me if I'm wrong, basically, we made some large purchases very
Yeah.
early in the budget year last year that we have not made the same large purchases yet. And so, were these
The two Suburbans that we purchased.
There were two Suburbans that were purchased in order to provide transportation for vocational students going to events, and they have also been used by other programs, but their primary purpose was CTE. We purchased those at the beginning of the budget year last year. Obviously, we don't need to buy vehicles every year, so we did not buy any vehicles at the beginning of this year. That's a kind of line that you will sometimes see depending upon if Mr. Skipper decides that a large piece of equipment is needed or something like that. You will see and some of the equipment that Mr. Skipper purchases is obscenely expensive, and it can jump significantly from 1 month to the next if he makes that purchase. It's just that he did not make that purchase in July of this year. Is that
Okay,
correct?
makes
Mel?
sense.
That's correct.
Okay, and the other line is 72510 fiscal services. Last year, we hadn't spent anything at this time, and this time we spent 7.69. Just wondered what the difference is.
So that is our financial software. We just last year we just didn't pay that until August. Our local government software that we use for payroll and for purchasing within my department, we incur that cost every year. We just paid it earlier this year, and we paid it in July instead of August.
Further questions? So what is a Board of Education Support Service?
Are you talking about 72310?
Yeah, 72310, yeah.
So that is any of your travel, like for the board, committee meetings, what we pay committee meetings out of. That is any cost that the board can incur, like work comp, liability insurance, the trustee that we pay the trustee every month, commission that we pay trustee. That is also what we pay, where we pay of our retirees. We pay a portion of our retirees medical, dental, and vision insurance, so it gets paid out of that line. So it's anything that would be tied to the Board of Education, like as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? We have a motion to approve the July budget update. So I think we were starting with Ms. Hinch.
Aye.
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 Uh,
Aye, so that is 8-0. Okay, items for discussion. Principals, Mr. Parsley, you got anything?
Okay, you have a number 9 agenda item.
Items 9,
Oh,
10,
that's
and
right,
11.
we had 9 and, yeah, so,
Yeah. No more.
I'm sorry, I didn't write those down, so
I say that too loud.
that is, okay, so 9 is 5.105 on the, recruitment of employees. I think these
Hey,
are
I
all,
just had one question on
Okay.
that. I was the one that asked that to be pulled out. Because I'm on the policy committee and we went through all this, but I looked at that. It says vacancies will be posted on the district website for a minimum of 6 days. And I just wanted to be ensured that it was posted somewhere. I mean, we post it somewhere other than just our website, don't we? Or do we?
We have utilized different resources, website, we have used social media and that kind of thing. We try to advertise as much as possible, but this was the only thing that was required as far as in policy, but we try to utilize as many resources as possible.
Okay, so that doesn't, then we probably don't need to put that in, anything else in there, because I think just having it on the website is actually not sufficient, because, you know, do we have,
We use other resources as well.
okay.
What are those?
Again, social media, if Ms. Langham was here, she'd be able to give a more detailed, description of everything. But primarily the website, I know there is a service, and I can't remember the name of it. It's not Indeed.
I think it's Indeed.
It was it Indeed? Okay. I wasn't sure if we did it on Indeed or not, but I know it's a service, something like that for people that are looking for jobs. But it might be Indeed, I should say. But there is a service of some sort that we posted on. And I know that we have posted multiple positions on social media.
Well, I'm good with this as long as we are doing something other than just the website. Because sometimes that could be missed by, even an employee or someone that's qualified that doesn't know about it.
Right.
If it's just on, so I guess we have to approve this.
Okay, you have to have a motion to accept it in a second and then vote.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept it.
Okay, second?
Second.
Jones and Cordell. Okay, any more discussion? Vote, Mr. Hansard?
Aye.
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 Votes aye. 8-0, okay. Policy 6.2011, which is voluntary pre-K attendance.
Okay, again, I'm on that policy committee and I did approve this, but, do we need the name of the person, or just the position where it says on line 18, Joanna, Sizemore? Or wouldn't we need that as director of whatever her title is, because this is a policy?
Right. We simply made that change when it went from, and in fact, that change was from, it was Ms. Brown's name, I believe, that was there before. But it could, if the board wishes, it could read pre-K elementary supervisor and then give the number.
I think we've done that with all the other policies, not giving individual names, because if someone did leave, resign, or whatever, we'd have to go back and change the policy, because it has someone else's name on it, like the Miss Brown.
Yes, ma'am. If you wanted to make the motion to change the name Jonah Sizemore to the, what's technically the title, pre-K elementary supervisor. So pre-K / elementary supervisor, we can make that change.
Okay, I make a motion that we change line 18 of the voluntary pre-K attendance policy to say pre-K elementary supervisor.
I'll second.
Lieu of a personal name.
Line 18 on the second page, okay? We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Who's second? Was that Mr.
Cordell? Okay. Any further discussion?
If that be the case, naming her a supervisor, would it change your pay and your,
No. She is the pre-K elementary supervisor.
so she's already getting supervisor
Yes.
pay? Okay, just
Just-
making sure. I just want to make sure
It
that's
just
out
removes the
there.
name so that if Ms. Sizemore were to leave the position and somebody replaced it, it would be whoever replaces her.
Further discussion? Okay, Mr. Hansard?
Aye.
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 Aye. That passes 8-0 as modified. And then item number 11 is 6.201, compulsory attendance ages. And I think that was, Ms. Yinch was,
The problem I have with this is I do deal with a lot of homeschooling families. And whereas in the first line, first and second line, it said, children between the ages of 6 and 17 years, both inclusive, must attend a public or private school. But then when we get down to the bottom, the compulsory attendance law shall not apply to the following. And it really doesn't reinstate that part about attendance or being umbrellaed under a private school. So I'd like to add to line 4, a student enrolled in a homeschool who's reached the age of 17 or is enrolled under a private school. So that's really clear that they are exempt. It doesn't exempt them. I'm not sure. I'd actually like to send this back to committee to get it even more clear, because it doesn't exempt them from the compulsory attendance, but it puts them underneath the supervision of the private school to account for their attendance. So it's not done underneath the public school, but it's done underneath a private school, and I just want that to become clear.
Well, yes. If you so choose, I'll give Dr. Cornelius a chance to explain, but if you so choose, you have the right to make a motion to send it back to committee.
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to do.
But go ahead, I'll let Dr. Cornelius.
The private school part is considered, umbrella school is considered that. They're category 4s, and they would be considered, in the homeschool, they would be considered part of the private school in the first place. So they're covered by that statement by just being in the umbrella itself. So yes, and
I would like, though, to send it back to committee and make that more clear at the bottom.
Are you talking about number 4 at the very bottom?
Yes.
Okay.
And I understand that's inclusive, but I just want to make sure that that's really clear.
Homeschools are required naturally to report their rosters, even under umbrellas, every year. They have to make that. They have to make that report to us, to the attendance office. And I mean, we just keep it there. We don't, do anything with it much. We just keep it. That's all we do, and track it.
I know my homeschooling parents, and they're not really trusting. So I'd like it to just be a little clearer on this.
That's fine.
Okay. So I'm sorry, just to clarify, you're making a motion to send it back to committee?
Send it back to committee.
Motion to send policy 6.201 back to committee for further clarification. And
I'll second that motion.
okay. Ms. Inch and Mr. Cordell. Any further discussion? All right, Ms. Jones?
Aye.
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 And I vote aye, 8-0. Okay, now, we can move on to items for discussion, I believe. Unless I missed something else, which is always possible. So Mr. Parsley, Dr. Anderson, just want to arm wrestle to see who gets to talk first.
I'm sorry. So I'll be really brief. Just a couple of big events happening at Coffee County Middle School. The first one I want to talk about is tomorrow's event. That is our day game. Our daytime football game is going to take place tomorrow, of course, at the Raider Academy at the football field. Game starts at 11, so this is open to the public as well. So we'll have our students come and attend, watch our football players play. We're playing Harris Middle out of Bedford County, so some of their students will come and be able to participate in the game. So really excited about that. We've opened that up to every student to be able to watch as long as they are have behaved and not off the bus, those kinds of things, right? So I'd say 98% of the population is going to be at the football game tomorrow. So we're hoping to have a great time at that event. Of course, there's other sporting events going on between here and the end of the month, so I'm not going to take a whole lot of time to talk about those. I do want to mention about our benchmarks, and so we're giving benchmarks at the end of the month to assess students' progress thus far in the school year, and so we'll do those 3 times a year. And so our first one will happen at the end of the month. And then right before fall break, we have what we call Raider Fest. And Raider Fest is a big event for the school. We get to be outside. It's kind of like compared to an elementary fall festival or spring carnival. We just do ours during the school day right before fall break as a kind of a celebration of the fundraiser that we've had early in the year, and as well as the work that everybody has put in. So it's a day full of fun, again, for the kids. So those are some things happening at Coffee County Middle School. Any questions about any of those or comments? And of course, you all are invited. You're welcome to attend those events if you'd like. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good evening. Our student ambassadors for this month will be sharing some information about what we have going on during the school week. It's a big week at the high school, and they'll have some details of that. But I wanted to share just 2 or 3 things that are going on over the next 2 or 3 weeks through about the end of the month. This weekend, our marching band, will have its first competition of the school year. They typically have 4 or 5 of those during the school year. And generally about this time of the year it starts. The first competition is going to be at Rockville High School this Saturday, and I believe it's called Bands at the Rock. All right, so makes sense that it would be called that. So it's at Rockville High School, and so they'll be competing again. Our band has really shown lots of progress over the last couple of years, and we're really pleased with how they've been performing, and look forward to hearing about how they perform this weekend. Want to bring your attention also to an event that's coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's the Out of the Darkness Walk. That's here local, and it's actually going to originate at College Street Elementary School here on the 21st of September, on Saturday. And this is American Suicide Prevention Month. And the Out of Darkness Walk is related to that. It's designed to draw attention to the topic, to the concern, and to encourage folks, and also to raise money for suicide prevention. Coffee County High School has a team that is participating in that walk. And so we'll have a lot of folks that actually go and walk on that morning. And we're also trying to raise money. If any of you are interested in participating in that, I can share some information about that with you later on. Also, would like to share with you that we have our Fall Renaissance Rally. It'll be next Thursday on the 19th, and that will be late morning, just before lunch. With our Renaissance rallies, what we like to do is just reward our students for their work from the previous semester. And so we have 615 young people that earned 1 card or more, 1 Renaissance card or more for their work for previous semester. Some of those cards are related to their grades, to their academic performance. We also have a card that's related to school attendance and behavior. And then finally, we have a card that is related to improving your GPA or maintaining a 4.0 GPA. And again, there'll be about 615 kids that we will be celebrating that day. And what we really do is just try to have a good time for about an hour or so at that rally. We'll be giving away food to them. We'll have lots of games for them. And also we'll be doing lots of money drawings with them. So it's a good time for them. Again, just an opportunity to reward them. Finally, I want to make mention that we are preparing for the senior ACT retake, and each high school in Tennessee administers the ACT generally 2 times. I believe schools might be able to choose to do that more, but we do it 2 times. And our senior retake is on October 3rd. And so we are preparing, hoping that we can help our young people, our seniors, to increase their average ACT score. It's fairly typical for a student to raise their score from the first time to the second time they take the ACT. we've seen students increase their score by 5 or 6 points. And it is, although it does sometimes happen, it is fairly uncommon that a student does not increase their score at least a point. And so a goal that we have for this ACT administration with this senior class who took it as juniors last year in March is that we increase our score by a point. That is really fairly significant. We have never increased it by quite that much, but it's a high goal, and I like to have high goals, so hopefully we'll be able to get there. We have English and math teachers at the senior level that are working alongside their students to help them specifically prepare for the ACT, and we are also doing weekly activities in homeroom to prepare for the ACT with all grade levels. So just want you to be aware that we're preparing for that. And aside from that, we've got lots of athletic activities going on, and it is homecoming week, and I'm going to let these guys talk with you about that when it's time. All right. Thank you.
And just on the ACT scores, that helps us improve our TSAT outcomes.
It absolutely
funding also.
does.
So
Absolutely
doing better
does.
there is, yeah.
We're working on it. We're working on it. Yeah. Any questions? Thank you.
All right. Board members, let's start down here with Ms. Matthews. Got anything? Questions? This is your time.
Not tonight.
Speak to the YouTube audience.
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay.
I'd have a couple things. First, I wanted to congratulate our high school Red Raiders on the coffee pot and their 2 amazing wins and almost win. That is wonderful. I think we won 3 games the whole time I was in high school, so I was so excited to see a coffee pot come home. It was a really good game. We've got some good guys out there. And I also wanted to take a second to acknowledge Mr. Brent Parsley. I am so sad that he is not sitting here with us anymore, and he put in a great 2 years. He's very level-headed and very thoughtful. So, Brent, thank you for all that you did, and we miss you. That's all.
Reiterate what you said. Thank you, Brent Parsley, if you're watching. We miss you.
I'd talked to Miss Kathy at Hickerson Station, and she brought up to me about the TISA money, about maybe keeping it.
Yeah, it comes bridge funding.
Yeah.
That we distributed.
Yeah, about not using it for, and maybe putting it on hold.
That would be a question for.
Yeah.
I believe Ms. Crabtree has mentioned that to me. Whenever the TISA funding was distributed out to the schools, there was a certain amount that was distributed to each school. The board stipulated that it had to be spent this year. Now, in a situation that Ms. Crabtree's in, she's a little concerned about spending a lot of money on a piece of playground equipment if the architect's plans ends up moving in that direction and they have to rip that piece of equipment right back out of the ground. And so what I've explained to her was that the board added that language. I came with the proposal to split that money up between the schools. The board added the language that it had to be spent this year with that stipulation. The board can remove that stipulation, so that can be a discussion at a future board meeting. It can be a discussion even towards the end of the year, but it's something that does affect Ms. Crabtree, Dr. Crabtree, because she's at the mercy if that school renovation goes through. She's kind of at the mercy of an architect and doesn't want to risk using the money on something that has to be pulled up immediately. And that's when I told her, since the board added that language, it would require the board to remove that language at some point, if you so choose.
Yeah, so her biggest concern, and I see where she's coming from. There's no need in buying playground equipment, and then if we're considering maybe adding on or possibly even doing another school,
So
can we
that can be an item on the agenda on the next board meeting to revisit that particular motion. We'll get that information together and we can make that an item on October board meeting.
Yeah, that way, it's at least where we don't want to lose it before the end of the year. We make that motion to get that taken care of for her.
Okay.
I was invited, well, the whole board was invited, and 3 of us went to an evening to view North Coffee. And I just want to say, what a beautiful school. Dr. Clark and Miss Gilly let us go all around and investigate it. And it was just such a nice school, so well put together, and the teachers were just delightful. So I just want to say thank you for that opportunity to come and view your school.
Not sure I was invited.
He said he invited everybody.
I'd say there was a reason.
Oh, no comment. No items.
No comment? That's your comment? Mr. Gilly, we always know you have something to say.
I want to welcome everybody, all the newcomers.
Thank you.
It's going to be an adventure and a journey
And thank Brent.
and a
again.
party. Yeah. Whether Brent will admit it or not, I know he misses me. And we miss him.
And it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Brent.
Yeah, happy birthday, Brent.
Oh, happy birthday, Brent.
And you know, I think we've got a lot of things to do here, and I think we'll get to it. And once again, congratulations, everybody.
Okay,
Congratulations to our new members, I agree. Well,
yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All right, we have fall retreat coming up September 26th, and that's kind of more informal discussion. We can't really decide anything there, but kind of cover things. So if there's anything you want on the agenda for that, let us know. And, you know, that's certainly, you know, we'll get that on there. We have, I had a number of requests come in for different things. Number one is to consider employing a parliamentarian for the board. And I know Ms. Cordell has experience with this. That's probably something we can discuss at the retreat. We had a request to put the director's contract on the October meeting. That would have to be the first item on the agenda, and this would have to serve as our 15-day notice, I think. So if I remember how that works. Number 3, and this one came from me, is, and I know this has been a subject for contentious debate in a number of work sessions, but booster club funds. I had somebody again at the fair come up to me and ask me about booster club funds, so we just need to talk about how we can be a little more transparent. I guess that just can be an agenda item on the fall retreat. And then last item is, you know, just getting an update at some point on, and maybe this is something we can discuss at the retreat too, is the Hickerson East Coffee renovations, or in the case of Hickerson, possible replacement, where we're at on that. And just kind of getting a report. I mean, if there's nothing to report, there's nothing to report, but it's a major capital project, and I don't think we've heard anything from Wold in a while, so that might be something to get an update on. And I think that's all I had. And yeah, if there's anything any of the board members want to see on the fall retreat agenda, just let us know. I mean, I think that's kind of our time to do that, and whether we do any school tours or anything like that, you know, let us know on that too. So that's all I had. Committee reports.
Because of the transition from one board to the other, we have not had any committee meetings since the last board meeting.
And student ambassador reports. We have with us Mallory Rogers and Amelia Thomas, so whoever wants to go first. And tell us a little bit about something about yourself too, so we know who you are.
There you go. We'll move this over a little closer there.
Hello, my name is Amelia Thomas, and I'm a senior. I'm involved in cheerleading, DECA, and SGA, of course. So I'm going to be talking about sports this week. So there's a volleyball game at home tonight against Warren County, and then there's one tomorrow and Thursday. And then girls soccer, there's a game tomorrow at home and one away Thursday. And then the final golf match is at home tomorrow. And then cross country is just regular season. So this Friday is our homecoming game against Siegel High School. And our theme for homecoming this week is all things Disney. So we have dress up weeks this entire week that correlates with the theme, and it helps show school spirit.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mallory Rogers. I'm the current student body president at the high school. So I'm talking all things homecoming. So this morning and this afternoon we had our homecoming king and queen voting, and those will be announced Friday night during our ceremony. Friday during the school day we'll have our pep rally, and student government is really working to get student participation. We really want it to be something that everybody's involved in, so we've come up with a lot of great ideas we've been discussing all week. Our dance, our homecoming dance will be after the football game on Friday night, and there is a little concern about weather. We typically have our dance outside, but if weather does not permit that, we will be moving it inside the cafeteria, but that is a Friday problem. And then coming up on October 1st, we have a college and technical schools fair for our students, our juniors and seniors specifically, just to get them comfortable with the schools around here that they can have the option to go to. We have people from each of the schools come and talk to students. That way students can just familiarize themselves with schools in this area and what they offer, what they don't offer, just to get them really warmed up to the idea of college. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down and spending your exciting time with us here. So, okay, director's report.
Yes, the principals and the student ambassadors covered most of what that I would have mentioned, especially with it being homecoming week, and that's kind of a big deal at the school, and as you can imagine, there's lots of activities going on. So I don't necessarily have anything new to add. I know that there have been grandparent breakfasts going on at different schools and that kind of thing. Now, I will say this. Mr. Ballard mentioned that putting my contract on the agenda for October, well, all that's required is a 15-day notice. So if the board wanted to have a special called meeting on the 24th or 25th, then what would happen there is, if it was decided one way or the other, then the board could spend some of the fall retreat talking about plans as a result of that vote. So I would make that suggestion as a possibility, but that's ultimately up to the chair whether to call a special called meeting on one of those two dates, but that's a possibility. And it would allow this particular issue to be resolved as soon as possible. Now, the ESSER update. One thing I have sent board members, we received a slight increase in ESSER funding. I believe it was about $95,000. I did mention I and Ms. Cole in different emails have mentioned to the board that we're looking at supplanting an existing cost, and one of those was the salary of one of our guidance counselors. We received confirmation from the state at the end of last week or over the weekend that that has been approved, and so that money will be set at some point to be dropped into to fund balance. And so any additional money that the government wants to give us that's that easy to deal with, we'll take it. But like I said, as far as there is still time to do a special called meeting before the fall retreat if the board elected to do that and spend some time at the fall retreat talking about plans.
Dr. Lawson, that $95,000, that's a kind of a windfall to us. Could that be applied toward bleachers at the high school? They are getting worse, and we had someone fall out there. Thank goodness it was an employee and they didn't get hurt, but those bleachers are getting worse.
Uh,
And I've
should-
had several people ask me about that.
Should the board elect that anything unassigned fund balance is exactly that? The simplest thing from a bookkeeping standpoint is to have it drop into unassigned fund balance, but the board can elect to remove that money and whatever else it would take to replace bleachers, if that's the direction. I believe that would fit into capital projects.
It would be, and that's actually part of our discussion when we have our next capital outlay or capital projects meeting. It's one of the topics.
I don't think, we could either do a special called meeting, or you can do it as the first. I think if the director's contract gets considered, it has to be the first item on the agenda for a regular meeting. So we could do it either way, but that is a good point.
I was just making the suggestion
Right.
because you have the fall retreat built in after a special called meeting, and you don't have a time already delineated for discussions after the October board meeting.
Well, we would have to check with the board on that, I guess, to see if we,
Well, I mean,
Think
you
we can
can,
work it
you
out.
can, the board chair does have some authority to set special called meetings, should you wish.
well,
But the board can't overrule you, but that's
that is
that's
true.
it.
So, at any time. So, yeah, so we'll have to think about that, but make a decision quickly, so, because it's coming up. Okay? With that, I think, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Favor, say aye. There we go.